Sure. Let's go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. This is the public meeting for the East Durham Water, Sewer, and Stormwater Project, Phase 1A. This is a multi-phase project to replace or renew drinking water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater drainage utilities in portions of East Durham. The field evaluations for this project began back in 2019. And phase 1A is the first phase of the project to move into design. So the goals for the public meeting this evening are to provide residents and businesses in the area an update on the proposed improvements, to let you know what to expect as we move into construction, and to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to enter your questions in the Zoom chat box, and we'll go through and answer any questions at the end of the presentation. And I'll note that the slides used during this presentation, along with the recording of this meeting, will be uploaded to the project website in the next few days. As Nolan mentioned, I'm Harmon Henderson. I'm the city's Department of Water Management project manager for this project. The Department of Water Management is responsible for the city's drinking water and sanitary sewer assets. Anton Williams is the Department of Public Works project manager for this project. He's overseeing the stormwater drainage components of the work. And Jasmine Abraham is a real estate officer in general services with the city. And she'll be coordinating with property owners for parcels that require new or modified utility easements. And finally, the city has contracted with Kimley Horn to design the phase 1A utility improvements. And Nolan Rainey is the engineering project manager for Kimley Horn. And I'll turn it back over to him to take us through the project specifics.
Sounds great. Thank you, Harmon. And with that, we'll step through a little bit of background information about the project. And first off, why is this project needed? And like many of the city's infrastructure improvement projects, a lot of it is based on age of the existing infrastructure. Many of the utilities in and around the downtown area were installed in the early 1900s and are in need of replacement, so we can improve the service reliability to the customers and the people that visit that area. And sort of the third reason is to address capacity concerns in those utilities. As an example, water lines, when they were installed in the early 1900s, the fire fighting desires were a little bit different back then than they are today, and similar situations for sanitary sewer or stormwater. And so as we replace those, bringing those into conformance with today's standards and needs. In the project area that we're discussing today, the overall East Durham water, sewer, and stormwater project is in this gold shaded area, generally bounded by Fayetteville Street to the west, Taylor Street to the north, Alston Avenue to the east, and Linwood Avenue to the south. And that's the overall project area. It's broken up into multiple phases of construction as we complete the needed improvements. The specific area that we're discussing today is the blue area, and we're calling that phase 1A. It's two sort of sub areas near Belt Street on the north side of the project area and Lincoln Street on the south side of the project area. Those are two areas that have some more urgent type needs that need to be addressed early on in the project. The remaining phases of the work, like I said, will continue on over subsequent years. And what all is included in these improvements? We're replacing about 3,500 feet of water lines that were installed in the early 1900s, rehabilitating or replacing about 4,200 feet of gravity sanitary sewer in the project area. And as part of those two improvements, we'll also be reconnecting existing water and sewer services to residences and businesses in this project area. On the stormwater side, roughly 1,100 feet of stormwater infrastructure will be replaced as part of this work. As well, where all of this construction is taking place, we'll be completing pavement restoration and any curb and gutter or sidewalk or any other disturbance during construction will be repaired to match the existing conditions. And a little bit of information about typical construction, sort of what you'll see as construction starts in these areas. Trucks and equipment will be bringing materials to and from the work site as stuff gets staged and ready for work to begin. Materials will generally be staged off-site and not within the roadways to leave room for both traffic and access, but then also the work to take place. With this project, it's a little unique in that we have all three utilities, water, sewer, and stormwater, being replaced in several areas. Oftentimes there may be a water or sewer project, but in this case, we're addressing all three of these pipelines as part of this project. And so generally, the contractor will have a pass for each one of those utilities. They'll install the water line and then perhaps move to the sewer and the stormwater in a linear fashion as they're installing those utilities. On the water and sewer work, as those utilities are installed, they'll be tested to make sure they meet city and state requirements, and then they'll be coordinated to switch service from the old utilities, from the old water sewer lines to the new water or sewer lines. And cleanouts or water meters will be placed at the right-of-way for the sanitary sewer and water line, respectively, as the transition point between the public and the private portion of that service. As part of those installation, contractors will be working within the existing right-of-way or within easements that will be obtained, either existing easements or will be obtained as part of this project. And temporary asphalt patches and restoration will occur as the utilities are installed. And then later on, after most of the work has occurred in an area, we'll come back and do more of a wholesale mill and overlay or asphalt restoration for the roadways as they're impacted. And as this work is taking place, closures will be used in the work areas to allow for the work to take place. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move through the slides. What will construction look like? Included are a few photos of some recent utility installations in the Durham area in recent years. You'll see a pipeline being installed into a trench as it's excavated with some perhaps some spoil piles in the area. As in the middle, you'll see as the utilities installed, the trench will be backfilled, or soil or stone will be put back into the trench to refill the trench until we bring it back up to grade, and then asphalt restoration will be completed sort of in this right-hand picture. And as all of this work is taking place, there'll be some impacts to both traffic and pedestrians. On the traffic side, some local road closures will be required in the project area as the utilities are installed. Traffic control with some detours, signs to denote detours will be used as the project progresses. Local access will be maintained or coordinated with residences as work progresses through an area. As an example, as a utility is installed across somebody's driveway, the contractor will need to coordinate with that residence to allow that work to be completed at a time. And then, for example, during a couple hours during a day, and then return access to that driveway. And as part of this work with the congestion, on-street parking will be closed in the active work area, and then returned as work progresses from one area to the next in a linear fashion. Pedestrian impacts. There's a limited amount of work that's in sidewalks. Most of these improvements will be within the existing pavement, the existing roadway. However, water meter replacements, some sanitary sewer service cleanouts that we discussed, and some stormwater work will occur in some sidewalks. When that takes place, there'll be some sidewalk closures with some pedestrian detours in order to maintain access to facilities in that area. The goal of the project will be to maintain access as best possible to businesses and residences while completing the necessary work. We discussed traffic a little bit, and that will require some local traffic closures with the detours around the work area. Noise impacts are difficult to avoid in construction. They'll be minimized where possible, but the majority of this work will occur during daytime hours between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. We don't anticipate that night and weekend work will be necessary. So hopefully that will minimize some noise disturbances for many of the residences in these project areas. And then on the water and sewer side for the services, the reconnection of those services will be planned 7 days or coordinated 7 days in advance to find a time that works for the resident and the contractor. It is possible to have unplanned service interruptions, just like it could any day of the year with a water line break or something like that, and those will be addressed as quickly as possible. But our planned service interruptions will be coordinated at least 7 days in advance. On a project timeline, we're working through completing the design and permitting and easement stage. We're hoping to go to construction later this summer with an anticipated duration of about 12 months. That would allow construction to be completed in the summer of 2023. With these two project areas, we anticipate that the contractor will begin work in the Lincoln Street area and then move up to the Belt Street area. And that has to do a little bit with the phasing of other work taking place in that Belt Street area as well. So what can you expect here in the coming months as we get closer to construction? One of the first things for properties that have easements is General Services will be reaching out to initiate easement discussions. And Jasmine Abraham is on the call today, and she will be our contact with General Services to be in touch with many of the property owners. And so she will be coordinating efforts to discuss easements with property owners in this area. Easement staking will take place on easements. And so there'll be stakes or flags in the ground to show where the easement boundaries are to get a better idea for the areas that are being discussed with Jasmine. Some other pieces of information, notifications will be posted on the project website as work gets closer to beginning. There'll be some paint on the ground that you probably see for other construction projects: green, blue, orange, yellow, different colors of paint marking existing utilities in the project area. Traffic control signage will be set up for detours as work gets closer to beginning. And we discussed the notifications, the 7-day notifications for water and sewer service interruptions. We'll also have a 7-day notification prior to work beginning in specific areas. And so, for example, as work begins in the Lincoln Street area, there will be notifications passed out in that area. You may not get a notification until later on for the Belt Street area as work gets closer to beginning in that area as construction commences in the summer of 2022. Diving into a little bit more detail about the two areas. First, the Belt Street area. One of the main corridors of Belt Street is obviously Belt Street. That is a congested corridor where we are replacing the water, sewer, and a very large stormwater pipe. Between 42 and 66 inches is that stormwater pipe. And so with all of that, that is going to be a very congested street with all of these improvements. There will also be some temporary impacts on the west side, on the Golden Belt side of the road, as we connect some of these stormwater improvements in that area. A few of the some Golden Belt coordination, obviously that is very close to that, all that facility. So we'll have to have close coordination with access to those facilities. There's also some planned private development that's taking place on the Golden Belt property that our work is coordinating with. The private work by others will begin before our project. And so we are in contact with that work, and we'll be coordinating our efforts as it moves forward. And then there are also a lot of residential areas in that area, in the Belt Street area, where we'll have water and sewer service reconnections as work progresses. In this figure, you can see the map that shows the project area with Golden Belt being on the top and right side of the figure. Franklin, Worth, and Morning Glory Ave are the main streets. I guess east-west streets, north is up, or north is to the right of this figure. But those are the main streets that will be within this Belt Street project area. The highlighted areas are proposed easements. In this figure and the second figure are posted on the city's website. And so if it's hard to see the areas that we're talking about and you'd like to zoom in on your property, You can pull up these PDFs on the project website, and it'd be easier to zoom in and see this in a little bit more detail if you're interested. The second area is the Lincoln Street area, and a few highlights of this project area are first the W.G. Pearson Center and Student U. You can see in this grass area in this picture, there's existing sanitary sewer lines that cross this that will need to be replaced. And so that will be coordinated as that work progresses. Similar to Belt Street, there are a number of residential areas, or there are quite a few residential areas in this project area that will have water and sewer service reconnections along Lincoln, Simmons, and Colfax streets. And then also there is some sanitary sewer relocation that follows the stream that goes, it's an unnamed tributary from Grant Park going south. And so there'll be some sanitary sewer replacements in that area. The existing sewer is in a difficult to maintain area very close in crossing the stream. And so moving that to an area that's more feasible for maintenance and access. This is a picture or a figure of this Lincoln Street area. Similar to what we discussed before, the shading denotes proposed easements that we'll be coordinating with property owners to obtain here in the near future. COVID-19 continues to be something that we deal with. And so with this project and all city projects, it will be continue to be something that the contractor and engineer will be following protocols as reviewed by the city to make sure that safety measures are being maintained. The good thing about this project is that all work is planned to take place outside, and we won't have any work inside buildings or facilities. But the project team will maintain consistent communication with residences and property owners via door hangers or social media outlets, and are available by phone and email if desired, if in-person outdoor meetings are not preferred. The city will continue to monitor the latest CDC recommendations and local recommendations for such work, and will address those as they change over the life of the project. And then finally, how will you stay informed? One, we're really glad that you're here today to be part of this public meeting. The city's website will also have quite a bit of information about the project. Some of this information that we've looked at today, the maps and this presentation and also this recording, will be posted on the project website. You can also sign up for weekly update emails as construction begins. We'll send out every week we'll send out a 2-week look ahead that will describe the coming work and the work areas over the following 2 weeks of the project to give you an idea of where active construction will be. There will be there'll be a full-time construction observer on behalf of the city on site during construction, and that could also be a resource if you have specific questions during construction. The project contacts that Harmon mentioned at the beginning of this presentation are also on the city's webpage, and feel free to reach out to any of those contacts with questions about the project. With that, that is a background of the project, and we are certainly open to answering any specific questions that you may have about specific areas or the project in general. So are there any questions or anything in the presentation that you would like a little bit more information about? Are there any other city staff that has any other comments that they want to add before we close, I guess, if there's no other questions?
Nothing from me. Thanks, Nolan.
Okay.
Just wanted to mention, Nolan had mentioned staking. So that should be taking place in the next few weeks. So if you are a resident and you see people on your property flagging areas of your lot, it is for the easements. So just want to let you know that is taking place hopefully in the next few weeks. and we will be in touch shortly. Thank you.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Hey, I'm Jenny Bell. I work in Neighborhood Improvement Services doing community engagement in East Durham, and I would be happy to send this out to some of the East Durham listservs if that's helpful, as well as the PAC one.
That would be fantastic. We can connect with you and make sure that we get you the information. We'd love to talk a little bit further and make sure that we're getting this information out and provided to folks as they need it.
Great. I'll put my contact info in the chat.
Great. Thank you.
And Nolan, I don't have anything to add either. Thanks.
Oh, very good. All right, we'll do a final call here. If nothing else, we do appreciate your time, appreciate you joining. And we do look forward to working with the residences and businesses in this area as we move forward with improving the infrastructure throughout the project areas. And don't hesitate to reach out to any of the contacts as the project moves forward, should you have any questions or concerns about the project. So thank you very much for your time.